You ever have one of those moments where your entire life shatters in an instant? Where everything you thought was solid and real just ceases to exist? That was me when I got the phone call about my parents. It was late at night. My phone rang, and I almost didn't pick up. I was half asleep, and my wife, Emily, nudged me, mumbling, "Who the hell calls at this hour?" I sighed, grabbed the phone, and as soon as I saw the caller ID, my heart dropped. It was my brother, and when I answered, all he could say was, "They're gone." A drunk driver. A drunk driver took out both of my parents in a single moment. Head-on collision. Killed instantly. I sat there in shock, feeling like I was in a dream. No, a nightmare. A bad, cruel joke. My dad, the strongest man I knew. My mom, the woman who held our family together. Gone. Emily sat up, rubbing my shoulder. "What's wrong?" she asked, voice laced with sleep. I turned to her, my lips barely moving as I whispered, "They're dead." I don't remember much after that. I remember sobbing, my chest heaving so hard I thought I'd pass out. I remember Emily holding me, whispering, "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm here," as I broke down in her arms. And I remember thinking, at least I have her. At least I'm not alone. The funeral came too fast. Or maybe not fast enough. It was a blur of phone calls, planning, grief. My brother and I handled everything, and Emily, she was there, like the good wife she was. Or at least, that's what I thought. The service was packed. My parents were well loved. Friends, family, co-workers, people from all walks of life came to pay their respects. It should have been a comfort, but it wasn't. It just made it real. And then there was Ethan. Ethan was a distant cousin. I hadn't seen him in years. The kind of guy who only showed up at family reunions when there was free food and beer. He was charming, I guess, in that fake, sleazy way that makes your skin crawl if you pay enough attention. And yet, somehow, he and Emily clicked instantly. I noticed it at the wake. The way they talked. The way she laughed at something he said, even though I hadn't seen her smile in days. I brushed it off. I was grieving. My mind was playing tricks on me. But then my aunt pulled me aside, her face tight with worry. "I think you should check on your wife," she whispered. And just like that, the nightmare got worse. I didn't want to believe it. Not on today of all days. My parents were gone, and I was barely keeping it together. The last thing I needed was more chaos, more pain. So when my aunt told me to check on Emily, I tried to tell myself she was just overthinking things. But something in her face made me listen. She wasn't one for drama. She wasn't the kind of person to whisper rumors just for fun. If she was saying something, it meant she saw something. I nodded at her, my heart already beating too hard in my chest. "Where is she?" I asked, my voice hollow. She hesitated, then glanced toward the stairs. She and Ethan went upstairs. Together. I should have frozen right there. Should have taken a second to process what that meant. Instead, I moved. I pushed through the crowd, my footsteps heavy, my pulse pounding. My house, my childhood home, was full of people, all here for my parents. And yet, my wife had disappeared upstairs with some distant low-life cousin. I told myself I was overreacting, that there had to be some logical explanation. Maybe she was helping him find something. Maybe they were just talking. Maybe my brain was fried from grief, and I was seeing betrayal in every shadow. But then I reached the stairs, and I saw the door, my old bedroom door, closed, and from behind it, whispers. Laughter, a muffled moan. I stopped breathing. For a second, my body refused to move. It was like my brain couldn't process what I was hearing, like it needed an extra minute to catch up. And then, I kicked the door open. I wish I could say it wasn't what it looked like, that my worst fears weren't instantly confirmed. But they were. There she was, Emily, my wife. straddling Ethan, her dress pushed up, her hair a mess, her hands clutching at him. And him? Smirking, like he'd just won some prize. For a moment, the world stopped. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Emily's eyes went wide, her mouth dropping open in shock. "Oh my God!" she gasped, scrambling to cover herself. Ethan just grinned. "Oh man," he chuckled. "Didn't think you'd walk in so soon." Like this was a joke. Like this wasn't the single worst betrayal of my entire life. Something inside me snapped. I don't even remember grabbing him. One second, I was standing in the doorway. The next, my fist was slamming into his face. The impact was brutal. His head snapped back, and he crashed against the wall, knocking over a lamp as he groaned in pain. "What the hell?" he yelled, clutching his jaw. Emily screamed, reaching for me. "Stop! Stop!" I didn't stop. I grabbed him again, shoving him against the wall, my knuckles aching from the force of the punch. "You!" I snarled, spitting the words like poison. "At my parents' funeral?" He struggled, trying to push me off, but I was seeing red. My whole body was burning, shaking with rage I couldn't control. I hit him again, harder. "Stop!" Emily screamed, grabbing my arm. "Please stop." I turned to her, my breath ragged, and the look on her face? Not guilt, not regret, just fear. Not because she was sorry, but because she got caught. That was when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some grief-driven lapse of judgment. She had chosen this. She had chosen to betray me in the middle of the darkest moment of my life. And the worst part? She didn't even look sorry. I let go of Ethan, stepping back. My whole body was trembling, my breath coming in harsh gasps. Emily looked like she wanted to say something, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." She shut her mouth. The reality of what she'd done was crashing down around her. The whispers had already started. People were gathering at the bottom of the stairs, watching. My aunt, my brother, my cousins, they all knew something was happening. I took one last look at her, the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, and I felt nothing. No more pain, no more sadness, just emptiness. "You're done," I said, my voice flat. And then I turned and walked away. I didn't listen to her when she followed me downstairs, crying, begging me to talk. I didn't look at her when she reached for me, sobbing about how it was a mistake, that she wasn't thinking, that she loved me. I didn't care, because in that moment, I knew one thing. She was no longer my wife. And Ethan? He was about to learn exactly what happens when you cross the wrong man. I don't know how I made it out of that house without completely losing my mind. My fists were still throbbing from hitting Ethan, but it wasn't enough. Not even close. My blood was boiling, my vision blurry with rage. I wanted to end him, but the second I hit the bottom of the stairs, I was met with a sea of faces. Family, friends, people who had just buried my parents, now staring at me in shock, in confusion. "What the hell happened?" someone whispered. "Did he just hit Ethan? Is he okay?" I didn't answer. I just kept walking, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. And behind me, Emily was chasing after me. "Wait, please, baby, just listen," she cried, grabbing my arm. I ripped away from her so fast she stumbled back. "Don't you touch me," I snarled. My voice was low, but it carried, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Her face crumpled, but I didn't care. I didn't care about any of it anymore. And then, the whispers turned into a storm, because Ethan finally dragged himself downstairs, holding his jaw, and the second everyone saw him, with his lips split open, his cheeks swelling, it all clicked. Gasps, murmurs. Then someone, probably my cousin, shouted the question that set everything on fire. What the hell did you do? Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I turned, looking at Ethan, then at Emily. Both of them looked like they wanted the earth to swallow them whole. I wanted to drag this out, make them suffer, but my grief and rage were too raw, too overpowering. So I said it, loud and clear, for everyone to hear. They were upstairs. My voice was deadly calm. Cheating on me. In my old bedroom. At my parents' funeral. The words landed like a bomb. A collective gasp ripped through the crowd. People staggered back like they had been slapped. My aunt clutched her chest. My brother's face twisted in disgust. And Ethan? He had the audacity to chuckle. You make it sound worse than it was, man, he said, rubbing his jaw. That was the moment I almost killed him. I lunged, but this time, my brother and a couple of my cousins grabbed me, holding me back as I thrashed against them. Let me go. I roared, my chest heaving. I'll break him. Ethan took a step back, finally realizing just how screwed he was. And Emily? She started sobbing, collapsing to her knees. I'm sorry, she wailed, her face buried in her hands. I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean for this to happen. I laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated. What? Did you just accidentally land on him? Somewhere in the crowd, someone snorted. Someone else murmured, Jesus Christ. Emily screamed, her voice breaking. I made a mistake. I was grieving too. You just what? I interrupted. You just couldn't keep your legs closed for one day? You just had to cheat with my cousin? At my parents' funeral? Her mouth opened and closed, but she had nothing, because there was no excuse. Nothing she could say that would ever justify what she did. And then my brother, who had been silent this entire time, stepped forward. He looked Ethan dead in the eye. Get out, he said, his voice cold. Now. Ethan swallowed hard. Look, now. And just like that, the crowd turned on him. People moved in, backing him toward the door. I saw my uncle shake his head in disgust. My cousin muttered, You sick? Even my grandmother, who barely said a word all night, glared at him like he was dirt. And just like that, Ethan was gone. But Emily? She was still kneeling on the floor, her body shaking as she wept. And I wasn't done yet. I crouched in front of her, my voice calm, too calm. Emily, I said. She looked up at me, her eyes red, her lips trembling. I want you out of my house, I said. Tonight. Her eyes widened. Babe, no, please. We can work through this. I love you. Shut up. She flinched. I had never yelled at her like that before, but she deserved every bit of it. You destroyed everything, I said. You betrayed me in the worst possible way. And the fact that you did it today, of all days? I shook my head, standing up. You're disgusting, I muttered. She started sobbing harder. Please, baby. I'll do anything. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I turned to my brother. Get her out of here, I said. I don't care where she goes. She's not staying in this house another second. And then I walked away, because I was done. That was the last time I saw Emily face to face. She tried to call me, text me, send emails. I blocked her on everything. I filed for divorce the next morning. I didn't care if she begged. I didn't care if she regretted it. Because some betrayals? There's no coming back from them. And Ethan? He got what he deserved. I made sure the entire family knew what he did. He was blacklisted from every gathering, every holiday, every reunion. Nobody wanted anything to do with him. Last I heard, his life hit rock bottom. Good. As for me, it took time. Time to heal, time to breathe, time to finally let go of the pain. But I did. And one day, I woke up and realized I was free. Free from the lies. Free from the betrayal. And most of all, free from her. You'd think after everything that happened, after the public humiliation, the absolute betrayal, and the complete destruction of our marriage, that Emily would just disappear from my life. But no, some people don't know when to quit. And Emily? She was one of them. The night I kicked her out, she was hysterical. My brother and cousin practically had to drag her out of the house, while she screamed about how she didn't mean it, how she wasn't thinking, how she just needed me to understand. Understand what? That she decided the best way to cope with my parents' death was to spread her legs for my cousin? Yeah, no. She ended up at a friend's house that night, but within 3 days, she was blowing up my phone. Blocked. Then she started emailing me. Blocked. Then came the handwritten letters. I ripped them up without reading them. She showed up at my job once. Security escorted her out. She even tried going through my brother, begging him to convince me to at least talk to her. His response? Go to hell. I almost laughed when he told me. And Ethan? That snake vanished. Probably too ashamed, or too much of a coward, to ever face me again. But Emily? She just wouldn't let go. And then, one night, she did something that crossed the final line. It was about 2 weeks after I kicked her out. I was finally starting to get some peace, or at least trying to. The house was quiet, the first time it had been in years. Then, at 2 a.m., I heard knocking. Loud. Desperate. I ignored it at first, thinking it was a drunk neighbor or some idiot who got the wrong house. Then the knocking turned into pounding. Please. A voice sobbed from the other side. Please, I just need to talk. Emily. I should have just ignored it, but something in me snapped. I stormed to the door, yanked it open, and there she was, soaking wet from the rain, mascara running, shaking like a leaf. Her eyes pleaded with me. Please, she whispered. I just need 5 minutes. I stared at her, cold, unmoving, and then I laughed, because at that moment, looking at her standing there, broken and desperate, I felt nothing. Not love, not pain, not even anger, just emptiness. You've got 1 minute, I said. She stumbled over her words, as if she didn't expect me to actually let her speak. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I was lost. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I wasn't thinking. I held up a hand. Stop. She froze. You're not sorry for what you did, I said, my voice low, firm, absolute. You're sorry you got caught. Her face crumbled. But you didn't make a mistake, Emily. I took a step closer, my eyes locking onto hers. You made a choice. She covered her face, shaking her head. I still love you. That did it. I stepped back and let out a slow, measured breath. No, you don't, I said. She blinked. If you loved me, I continued, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have thrown away everything we built. You wouldn't have disrespected me, our marriage, my family. She tried to speak, but I didn't let her. You chose to betray me, I said, my voice steady. And now, I'm choosing to never look at you the same way again. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence. Her tears fell harder. Her shoulders shook. She reached for me. Please. I took a step back. Then I said the last words I would ever say to her. Goodbye, Emily. And I shut the door in her face. That was the last time I ever saw her. She tried to reach out a few more times, but I never responded. The divorce? Finalized in record time. And Ethan? Last I heard, he lost his job, got kicked out of his apartment, and started drinking even more than before. Poetic justice. As for me, I rebuilt. It wasn't easy. Losing my parents and my marriage at the same time nearly broke me. But guess what? I survived. I started working out again, reconnecting with friends, throwing myself into my career. And one day, I woke up and realized I was happy, not because I forgave Emily, not because I healed from the betrayal, but because I didn't let it define me. I took back my power. I took back my life. And that was the best revenge of all. If you're reading this and you've ever been betrayed, let me tell you something. It's not your fault. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of them, their weakness, their selfishness, their inability to be decent human beings. And you don't have to forgive them. You don't have to give them a second chance. You just have to do one thing. Walk away. Because once you do, you win. And they spend the rest of their miserable lives wishing they hadn't lost you. And that's the kind of revenge they'll never recover from.